Hello and welcome to the Trusted Podcast. I'm your host, Blake Johnson, and today we've got a great guest. We've got Harvey Blankfeld of the Brown Blankfeld Group, and we are going to be talking about real estate. We're going to be talking about COVID-19 and how that is affecting everything. And I think the first thing we need to know is that it's affecting, hair and facial hair. We both got the scruff going on. I haven't had a haircut in so long that I've got, the Matthew McConaughey pullback look going on. I haven't done this since college, so it's pretty interesting.
I know, me too. It's my wife has tried to trim the edges a little bit, and I decided, you know what? If I'm not meeting a lot of people face to face, I'm just, I hate shaving. I don't know how you feel about it, but I hate shaving. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna let it go for a little while, see what happens.
Yeah, I don't like it, but I also don't like it after it gets about a week. So I've just been shaving once a week, and that's been perfect. It stays at that length that I like. And when you only shave once a week, it doesn't, bother your face as much, at least for me.
Good for you. Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, so it's funny. My assistant walked in today, and she said, "You look like you got the beach vibe going on with the long hair." Like, I guess that's all right. I'll take it.
Well, for me, Blake, it's interesting because if when I go shopping now once a week, people stay away from me. So it's helping.
That's good. All right, Harvey. We worked together for a long time, but why don't you give our listeners a little background about yourself, about your firm, and what makes you guys experts in the field of real estate?
Well, thanks, Blake. We've been selling. My partner Shelly and I, we've been selling homes here in Southern Nevada since 1988. We've done a lot of business here. We do business in real estate a traditional manner, but with a lot of modern convenience. We have a team of agents. We have 12 agents on our team. And between us, we do home sales. We do help buyers. And we also do property management. So we're uniquely positioned to be able to help anyone with anything residential real estate. And the only reason we even started doing property management because we couldn't find a firm that we were happy with. So we decided to do it ourselves, and we hired a couple of people. And now we do that. We're managing about 150, 160 properties right now. And that's an interesting element within COVID-19 as well. Property management has interesting twists within it. But we've been doing this a long time. We have a team, and our team they're all partners. They're all quality real estate agents. And so when we take on a client, we all collectively take on that client.
Nice. I think that's great. So let's talk about property management since you brought that up. That's something we haven't discussed on the show before. So what's the effect you're seeing on it, and then also what type of things should people be looking for in a property management company, or what are some mistakes you see people make when they're trying to use a property management company or trying to do it on their own, and why a property management makes sense?
Yeah, no. In the time of COVID, property management has a lot of additional challenges. Right now, because the governor's directives basically told us we cannot evict, we cannot charge late fees. There are some tenants out there who will not be able to make payments, and we understand that. There's people out there who are laid off and furloughed and just don't have income, and so they can't afford to make their rent payments. We understand that. The thing that we want to make sure that the tenants understand is that while there are people out there who can't, if you can, you should, because the governor did not forgive the rents. The rents will still be due at some point. And so it would be extremely difficult for people to catch up later should they fall so far behind. So I just like people to know, look, while as a property management company, we're happy to work with people to help them. And when this is over, we've already expressed to our landlords that, look, we're going to want to work things out with people in a fair and equitable manner, so that they don't have to write one huge check, because they're not going to be able to do that. If they didn't have the income now, they're certainly not going to have the income the day the governor lifts the directives. So we'll work out payment plans for them afterwards. Again, but I think it's important to note that if you cannot afford to make your rent payment, that's fine. Maybe make a partial payment if you can, or just make sure you have it in your head exactly how you're going to get caught up later. Just start thinking about it. Now, one of the directives the governor gave is that we're not allowed to basically negotiate now. We can't even talk to our tenants about how we're going to resolve their issue when this is over, because they're fearful that there will be some property managers out there who will use that as a coercion method to get them to do things that they really can't do. And so we've had tenants call us and say, hey, what do we do? So look, when we get through this afterwards, we'll talk. Right now we can't. And if it happens that their lease comes up for renewal and they want to adjust it, we can't do that either. We have to wait to renew the lease. Now, we have had a couple people come to us and say, hey, we'd like to renew the lease at the current rate with no changes. We've been able to do that, but that's as far as we can go. If there's any negotiation or any change in it, we have to hold off until after everything's done. And we did, by the way, Blake, we did have to recently just let a landlord go because they wanted us to do things we would not do. And that happens from time to time.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. Yeah, I think people think, oh, I don't have to pay my rent, so it's going to be forgiven. No, this is just, it's making it so you can wait until you have income. So yeah, if you can pay, if you have savings, make that rent payment so it's not a big burden. Because obviously, if they had the money to pay the rent, they'd be able to write that one big check when this is all over. But the truth is, people can't do that most times. So make whatever payments you can. I think that's a smart strategy there.
Indeed, yeah, and that's where we've gone. And look, and to the credit of both our landlords and our tenants, I'm going to tell you the vast majority of everyone understands this and is going with the flow.
Nice. What about on the landlord's perspective? Are they getting any help from the banks as far as their mortgages they have going on? Are they able to negotiate that yet, or is that same thing, they just can't negotiate and it's just kind of like, we'll take care of it when it's done?
No, actually, that does happen. And I would tell anyone who has a mortgage, speak to your lender. If you're having difficulties making that payment as a landlord who's not collecting rent, for instance, if you're having difficulties, talk to your lender. Now, make sure you talk to your lender. Don't make any assumptions. Even though the governor and the president have both basically said, hey, we want the lenders to work with everybody, that means different things to different lenders. And there are two basic components to that type of move, and one is forbearance and the other is deferment. Forbearance is a little more risky for a borrower in the sense that if the bank says, yes, we're going to give you a forbearance for 60 days or 90 days or 120 days, that's fine. But at the end of that term, they could, in essence, as a result of that, say, hey, okay, now we gave you those 120 days, now give us all the money. They could essentially say, do what I'm saying you shouldn't do to a tenant. With a deferment, they will move all those payments to the end of the mortgage, and they'll all get pushed back all the way to the end. That's what you'd really like to see as a borrower. And each landlord has to deal with each lender individually. We've encouraged them to do so should they have any difficulties. And I will say, for the most part, the banks have been pretty good. They've been working with everybody that I'm aware of.
That's good. Yeah, I think for the most part, there's been a lot of sad things that have happened with COVID-19, but I think there's been a lot of good things. I think we've seen the better side of our country, and as business owners in our community in general. People are willing to work, and it's nice to see that kind of camaraderie come together for that respect.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. All right. So let's transition to how things are going with buying and selling during this time. Are we still seeing transactions happen, and what's the differences you're having to do to make that happen with all the social distancing rules?
Yeah, the market, while it has slowed, is still very, very active. We're seeing a number of transactions. One of the things I've been doing is because, as you know, I do a radio show every week, and the studio has closed, so we can't do our radio show. Forgive me. So in light of that, what I've done is a weekly podcast on Facebook Live, and we've presented the stats on a week-to-week basis. And if you'd like, I can share with you this week's stats, if that's okay. Let me see if I can bring that up for you. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that?
Yep, I can.
Okay, great. So this is the stats I presented yesterday on our weekly podcast, Thursdays at 3, which is Thursdays at 3. It's on Facebook Live or at LV Real Estate Radio. And what you'll see here is that this week this is only single family homes. And that's what I've always done on the air. So I figured I better make sure it's consistent. So this week we currently have available. This is all the homes we have available. 6,360. Last week we had 6,405. You see, it came down a little bit for the first time in about 4 weeks, but it hasn't moved all that much. Now, in the last 7 days, we put 505 homes in escrow. We closed 369 transactions. 130 single-family homes were withdrawn. These are all just within 7 days. The median sold price of those properties was 306.6, and the median sold price was 174.46, and the days on market was 34. Now, when you compare it to last week, there's the comparisons. These two numbers, the median sold and the median sold per square foot, to me, they're so variant. The sample size is so small that's not surprising to me to see them move around a lot. But these other numbers are not horrible, although the solds did drop a bit this week, and that's been dropping pretty consistently. We've seen the closings drop. But we put 500 in escrow this week, which is great. And that's really, 500 is kind of the minimal benchmark we like to see on a weekly basis in Southern Nevada. So if we're anywhere near it, we're okay. Now, normally this time of year is very busy. That number would be much, much higher. So I will say it's slower, but it's not stopped. So if you're a buyer and you want to buy, we can buy. If you're a seller and you need to sell, we can sell. In terms of showings, we're using every precaution. We're all wearing masks. We're wearing gloves. We're having the seller turn on all the lights before we arrive and open all the interior doors so nobody really has to touch anything. So the seller can open the door for us and then open the back door for us, and then we can just walk through without having to touch anything. And with that, we've really not had too much resistance with showings. Now, the governor basically said recently, don't show homes with people occupying them. So now we've reduced that to basically just empty homes. But there's plenty of vacant homes out there. As I told you this morning before I got on with you, I was talking with a buyer who's driving in from Nebraska, and we're going to be showing them homes tomorrow. They've got 5 that we've got picked out that we're going to go see. So the market still goes on.
What about virtual showings? Are you being able to do that, like do a FaceTime with clients or anything like that?
Absolutely. My team and I have been doing that. Actually, we've been doing that long before the time of COVID. If a client, for whatever reason, can't get to a property and they want to see it, we'll go to the property for them, exactly what you said. We'll do a FaceTime with them, and we'll walk through and show them everything. There's also, for the properties we're listing, we're doing virtual tours, and we're doing virtual open houses even, where we just sit there at the home with the video and say, hey, if somebody wants to see it, let us know. We'll walk you through. And we walk people through the home. It's interesting, Blake, I think that this is going to affect our business going forward. We're going to see a lot more of this going forward. For instance, one of the things I'm concerned about a little bit is people getting in my car. Right now you would not want to get into a car with a stranger. You just wouldn't want to do it. You just don't know. You want to be cautious. And even if you're wearing a mask, I'm not sure we'd be comfortable in that confined space of a car. For me, I don't know that I'm going to want to put people in the car. And I've got to tell you, putting people in my car is an important thing because that's great time for conversation for me to find out exactly what it is the buyer needs and wants, and so that we can get through that process. And that's a good time to do it. But we may just have to do that in another manner, perhaps like this. Perhaps just sitting down and having a video conference.
Yeah, I will say from my business perspective, I had one client that was insistent on meeting in person this last week, and I was fine with it. They've been a long-time client, so I knew who they were and all that. But just being able to sit down and have that conversation, we were able to get to issues so much quicker, but also more deeply, and really understand what was going on and what needed to happen. That I just think that there's something to that. Even though we can do these meetings that are technically almost face to face with video, it's not the same. You can't read the situation. Sometimes you're talking over each other because of the delay and everything. It's hard. So I get that concern, and I think hopefully we don't lose it completely with the face to face. But I do think there is going to be a transition there. So with that, what are you seeing long term as far as the effects of COVID-19 on the market?
Well, the good news is that coming into this issue, our market was very, very strong. We were growing. I just shared an article on the podcast the other day by in the RJ. Excuse me. There's a blower right behind my window here, and I don't know if you can hear that. Anyway, before the time of COVID, our market had only appreciated around 3 or 4%. Was on a 3 or 4% trajectory, which is great. You've heard me say this, Blake. If I can choose an appreciation rate, it's 3 or 4%. That's where I'd like it to be. That's a nice steady growth. We don't like seeing the roller coaster effect where it goes up 10, down 9, up 11, down 7 type of thing. We like it this way much better. So what do I see going forward? First of all, this is nothing like the Great Recession. It's not like that. The metrics are not there. People who own homes now are vested in those homes. They've been thoroughly vetted by their lenders. They can afford them. They have money in the properties, unlike back then when people could just sign paper and buy 5 homes. That's not the case now. As you well know, lenders are very thorough right now, and they're not letting people buy homes unless they can actually afford them. So the good news is that our market is much, much more stable going into this crisis. And I think that the answer as to what the impact on our market is, how long does it last? And we're starting to come out of it now. So I'm encouraged, and if it only lasts a few more weeks or even just a few more months, we're going to be great. We're going to come out of this. We're going to be just fine, and perhaps pick up where we left off and just go from there. I think prices have held fairly steady. They have not dipped dramatically. There's buyers out there who would love to see that, who have encouraged us to make offers that we'll write the offer for the buyer, but I'm going to tell you that the sellers are not going for it right now. They're just going to wait until things get better, and then there's more buyers out there in competition if they don't like the offer. Now, having said that, there are some sellers who are more anxious, I'll say, and you might be able to get a quick little deal. But that being said, I think that the market's going to be just fine coming out of this thing. I think it will start to appreciate again once we clear this. But the question is, when will that be? That's all.
Okay. Now I've heard some information about getting jumbo loans right now. So if we're above, that 500,000 price point, that's very difficult. So I think it's more of a what price range you're in. Is that an accurate thing? And can you speak to the jumbo loan issue?
Yeah, a little bit, because it actually was interesting. Before this, jumbo loans were very attractive to lenders, and their rates were phenomenal. They were actually, jumbo loans in some cases were lower rates than conforming loans from some of the lenders prior to this happening. However, since this has happened, the lenders that we work with, we've seen jumbo loan rates go up, and the qualifications for jumbo loans have also tightened. And I think it's because the banks are right now, they're I don't know if I want to lend right now. Let's be careful, and they've tightened things up. So I think that's true of all loans, and it's an unfortunate reality that a lot of the cancellations we've seen are as a result of people being furloughed or laid off. And so if you don't have income, you can't get a mortgage right now. And so we've seen some of that. But again, once we come out of this and everyone gets back to work, I believe that the lenders are going to be very understanding about the financial hit that everyone's taken. I think that they're going to say, oh, gee, well, you had some issues. I see you had some credit issues here in the first half of 2020. Well, we know what that was about. And so right. I think that they're going to forgive a lot of that if it should people have issues. So coming out of this, I don't want anyone to be discouraged about the opportunity to buy. I want everyone to consider it. Even if you had some financial difficulties now, I want you to consider going to your lenders and getting that loan. If you're renting right now, let's talk about the difference between renting and owning right now. Okay. If you're renting right now, while the governor has told you that you don't have to make the payments right now, he has not forgiven that rent. So you will eventually have to pay it, and you'll have to pay it within a year's time, because that's when your lease is normally. And if your lease is up in October, oh my goodness, you're going to probably have to squeeze those payments in tightly unless you extend your lease, and then maybe the landlord will let you spread that out over a longer period of time. If you're an owner and you get a deferment, you get 6 months off or 3 months off or 4 months off, you don't have to increase anything. Everything gets moved to the back. the difference between renting and owning right now is very, very significant for people, and the owners are going to get the benefit of the ability to be able to defer, where tenants will not, unfortunately, not now, unless their landlords are incredibly generous somehow. And landlords, sometimes they just can't afford to be, as you said, they get a mortgage to pay, so they're going to have to pay that mortgage too. So that's one of the dramatic differences right now. So if you're a renter, get out there and buy a home. It's the part of the American dream.
Yeah, as long as you have income, right? That's the
Exactly.
thing. Obviously, if you're furloughed, and there's nothing you can do, and that's
Right.
a terrible situation to be in. But yeah, that's a really interesting point that you brought up there. So that's good. We covered a lot of stuff here. Anything else that we missed that you think is really important that we missed as far as what's going on right now?
Can I talk a little bit about iBuyers, Blake?
Mm-hmm.
Just in the sense that in the time of COVID, they've kind of disappeared. I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of them who were in transactions just walked away from transactions because of the only way iBuyers can be effective. And honestly, to this date, they have not been financially effective. They're borrowing money from Wall Street like crazy to build up their concept. But a lot of them have bailed and they've stopped. There are some local players who are out there ready to pay cash for your home and do a quick close, which is fine. But I want everyone to understand that when you're dealing with an iBuyer, you're dealing with one individual investor whose objective is very simple. They want to buy your home at a price that will allow them to do whatever improvements they want to do and then sell it and make a profit. They're not doing it to live in it. They're not doing it for long-term play. They're doing it because they want to make money on your transaction. So your choice as a seller is, and here's how I'll analogize it. Your choice as a seller: do I want to sell wholesale to this investor, iBuyer, or do I want to sell retail to a family who's going to live in the home and pay me more money? Now, the trade-off is that with the iBuyer, it's easy. You don't have showings. It'll happen in a very quick timeline. But you're probably giving up multiple tens of thousands of dollars. And that's the question I want you to ask yourself. Now, the other thing I will say about that too, Blake, is that if you are thinking about something like that, talk to your real estate agent, talk to your realtor, your trusted realtor. They will likely have the connection and contacts to get you that quick payment and probably get you more money than the iBuyer is going to offer. And so you'll end up with more money in your pocket and still be able to do it in a timely manner. So that's the last thing I want to say, because I hear a lot about iBuyers in the last year, and I want to make sure that I get that across as well.
Yeah, and a couple weeks ago we had Carl Bassett of Homevestors on the show, and he's one of the local investors who's actually doing that. But same thing, he's not the iBuyer, so he's not going to take off here or there, make an offer and then take it off. That's the price. You know what you get up front, and so yeah. And I know you've got investors you work with, so the local guys and using a realtor actually does get you more money because you have those connections, and they're willing to go a little bit more because they're not having to spend millions of dollars on the advertisements and the mailers and all that stuff. They work with the local connections. Indeed, I agree 100%. Absolutely. Okay. Last question I have for you is, how does someone find a good, trusted realtor to use? What are the key qualities that you think that people should be looking for, and what are the major red flags that they should stay away from? Well, it's easy for me to say now because I'm a big believer in experience because I've got plenty of it. Although I will tell you, even with all my experience, I still learn every day. There's no end to the cycle of learning. But I think the important thing is to interview the person you're considering and look for two things. Look for someone, as you say, you can trust. That's important. Someone who has experience. And I think you need to like them just a little bit because the relationship's going to be very, very close for a while. We're going to be, if you're working with me, you're going to be with me a lot. We're going to be talking a lot. So there's got to be both a level of trust, and you have to actually kind of like the person a little bit too, only because of that. And with those two things, that makes the transaction that much better for you as a person. So ask a lot of questions. How much business have they done? How much business are they doing currently? And how well do they know my neighborhood? How well do they know the area I want to live in? Those are the things you really want to focus on. Okay. So if one of our listeners is going to be moving to Vegas or needs to sell their home here in Vegas, how do they get a hold of you?
Oh, it's easy. You can call me at any time, 702-203-1165, or you can go to our website, brownblankfeld.com, and there's a hookup to contact any one of us right directly from your phone. And you can look at properties. You can see our property management portal. We've got everything residential real estate on our website as well.
Perfect. Yeah, and I'll make sure to put your contact information in the show notes so they can reference that as well. So
Great.
thank you, Harvey. I appreciate you being on the show. I think it's all very valuable and pertinent information. So as always, it's great to talk to you.
Hey, Blake, thanks. Anytime. Happy to help.
Okay. Well, as always, to our listeners, please like and subscribe so you get the latest content. And if you can leave us a review, let us know how we're doing. We'd greatly appreciate that as well. And if you have any suggestions about what we should cover on the show the next time, please let us know. We'd love to hear that feedback. So thank you, and we'll sign it off for now.